African and among African countries and boost inter-regional trade. Already South Africa's very significant export market is our immediate neighbors and the rest of the continent, and more African countries are not with countries taking responsibility for our own destiny. Second, the renewal of AGOA. This is about two key steps in a way in which Africa is seeking to industrialize and to promote opportunities for greater economic development. South Africa agreed to host the AGOA Forum to underline the importance we attach to the economic relationship with the United States, a vital relationship. We have a long history of economic relations. Some American firms have presence in the South African market for more than 100 years. And the US is a significant market of products. We are the largest exporter to the United States from the African continent, exporting more than three times more than the next largest exporter. But the US is also important as an overall trading partner. It's South Africa's second largest national trading partner. South Africa, in turn, we are the biggest market for American exports, sub-Saharan Africa. And both of us have very strong business relations with each other. Between the US and South Africa, two-way investments to that $12 million and a very significant part of that is American investment in South Africa, but we also have very large South African investment in the United States. Particularly, Sasol is a huge investor in Louisiana, and Sibandi Stillwater is a very large investor in the state of Montana. So if we really look at the economic relationship, and I can give you all the detail of it, it underlines the importance to South Africa and the African continent of having that trade relationship, and the importance to the Africa and South Africa provides an enormous quantity of the raw materials that is fueling American industrialization. Just South Africa alone is the single biggest provider of a number of critical minerals to the US. Of course, similarly, we benefit from the technology, from know-how, and from the jobs created here. So part of why we wanted to host the AGOA, we wanted to affirm the importance of this relationship. It's a very significant relationship. And while I've spoken about trade and investment, the relationship goes well beyond just trade and independence. There are other economic elements to it. I refer to technology partnerships between South Africa and the United States, tourism, cultural links, and of course, on a number of areas, there is strong political partnerships dealing with how to promote development. The United States, for example, is a very large program on the African continent called PEPFAR, which is support people with HIV/AIDS. We also have common positions in promoting peace and stability on the continent. The official logo you will see here behind us, you will see the three elements of the partnership. South Africa as the formal host, the United States as the partner, and the African continent as the other co-hosts. Of course, we're really hosting the certain half of the continent. We had a meeting with African trade ministers last year where we had a common position on AGOA, and we had similar meetings with 3 African ambassadors in Washington, D.C.
in Washington, D.C., in which they too have worked together on a common position. And so this will be an opportunity for us in the forum to share those views with the United States. I hope this doesn't create difficulties for the media, the sound challenges.
In the discussion to reflect a little bit on the experience that the African continent and the United States has had on AGOA, to look at the future, how we can get even more from the future by complementing AGOA with other measures. And the Common African position on AGOA is to seek to have AGOA renewed for an additional 10 years, to seek a number of refinements where the rules around AGOA can be made more user-friendly, some additional products can be added. All the AGOA beneficiary countries, and to complement AGOA with measures such as investment, technical support, and similar arrangements that can enable more medium-sized firms on the African continent to access the American market. There will be a number of breakaway sessions. They'll cover things like the impediments and challenges that businesses have in accessing AGOA and how we can develop joint export strategies. There'll be a session on agriculture, food security, on manufacturing. and similarly procurement officers from other African countries looking at the opportunities that South African firms can offer. This Made in Africa exhibition will be open on set days to members of the public. We'll advertise those so that South Africans can also enjoy the visit to this. And then, in addition to that, we'll have a heritage walk where we are going to be exploring African history and culture, and we're going to be bringing to the exhibition artifacts and history of the continent. And we'll look at the ancient civilizations like Mapungubwe, and we'll have some of the artifacts from those that will be available. And we'll tell the story of Africa as a trading place historically. If you look at the history of Africa, the great trading cities of Sofala and Mogadishu and Mombasa were trading with the world way before the colonial period. We'll deal with the colonial period and also post-colonial periods. That will all be set out, and we will be inviting members of the media, members of the public to partake in that. So we're focused on African cuisine and food and beverages. This is the home of coffee. Coffee as a beverage, the coffee bean originated on the African continent, but we're also a major tea producer now, with particularly East Africa being a very, very large exporter of tea to the rest of the world, and of course South Africa with our rooibos tea. There will be a set of policy and practitioners forums on competition, development, finance, and so on. And wrapping it all up an African fashion show, bringing young designers from across the continent to showcase their work. And really, if I conclude what this is, it's a celebration of the economic relationship. It's an affirmation of the economic relationship. It's a renewal and a strengthening of that relationship and upscaling. We're looking to do even more in the relationship with the United States in the period ahead as a continent, using as our base the efforts now to build greater economic linkages between African countries through the African continent free trade area. Among many distinguished speakers will be the Secretary General of the AFCFTA, who will be with us. And we hope in all of this we can showcase the benefits the continent gets from AGOA and the trade relationship, and the benefits that the United States obtains from that very important relationship to jobs in the United States, access to minerals, access to capital, jobs in the African continent, access to technology, access to opportunities for small businesses, and the important role that you see in the theme of the conference, the emphasis on industrialization. So may I then end by saying we've had an absolutely outstanding response from the South African private sector to be partners in this. We've had sponsorship and we'll share the full list of sponsorship next week and at the event. But companies like Standard Bank and Sasol are diamond sponsors, Sibani is a gold sponsor, PepsiCo is a silver sponsor, and bronze sponsors are companies like Vodacom, MTN, Amazon. We've had sponsorship from Aspen, Google, and many others. So it's really been a strong opportunity to affirm the strong relations between government, the business community, and organized labor in hosting this. And we really want to warmly welcome our American colleagues and friends when they visit South Africa next week, and really roll out the red carpet and get a lot of investors to put more money here in South Africa, and a lot of procurers to buy a lot more products from the African continent. Of course, we also will be welcoming all the African trade ministers and look forward to having all of our colleagues sitting with us looking at how we can strengthen Africa's place in the world. Thank you very much. May I then back to our program director.
Thank you very much, Minister Patel. A couple of months, and actually, yeah, a lot of commitment, of activism that you see from our business community and that you see from the leadership of our business community. And one of the individuals that has been at the forefront of that activism on behalf of SAE has been none other than Mr. Cas Kuvadia, who is here in his capacity as the CEO of BUSA. Cas has been quite instrumental and actively involved in driving the business element of AGOA and ensuring that we are able to reach this momentous occasion. Cas, I invite you to probably ask Minister that maybe instead of shuffling microphones, you just swap chairs with Cas. Do a little bit of reshuffling without shuffling anybody. Cas, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, Minister, our colleague. I'm not going to repeat points that the Minister made about the importance of AGOA, the importance of our trade relations. That AGOA is in the national and continental interest. This is an issue that business, labor, and government can very easily come together because the benefit of AGOA to critical sectors in the South African economy are palpable and quite clear. That leads to economic growth in the country and leads to job creation in the country. So we all had item on that. And also had item that America is in critical investment and trade destination and partner for South Africa and for the continent. We are a country that's doing a lot of work to try and put the country onto a sustainable economic growth path. And in doing so, we need to ensure that we establish a relationship with critical trade partners and investment partners because we need the investment and we need the trade. So AGOA is important. I think for business, labor, and government to work in partnership to ensure that we have the same message, and the critical message has got to be to try and advocate expansion of AGOA after 2025, and for South Africa to remain a critical partner, critical subject of AGOA, and we are adding them. We absolutely clear that to a great extent, the trade and investment relationships, the trade and investment projects will be driven by business, facilitated by government, because this is all about business and the economy, and work with our colleagues to ensure that we have garner the benefits of AGOA in a way that we also address our unemployment situation and create jobs. And we would want to see, and we will see, an ongoing partnership between the three stakeholders so that we optimize our beneficiation from AGOA and we ensure that AGOA is an instrument, a critical instrument for us to grow our economy. The Minister did refer to BUSA partnership with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We have a very good partnership. We have an MOA governing that partnership. And one of the things we want to do is
future around events like these to actually organize side events where we bring business and governments together so that we begin to really concretize that partnership. So, as an example, a sideline of the UN General Assembly a couple of months ago, the US Chamber of Commerce and Industry jointly hosted a roundtable for President Ramaphosa with 25, 30 American business leaders, which went very well. And we'd like to repeat that in future around events like these and utilize that partnership to ensure that we do leverage off AGOA in a good way and optimize our role in AGOA, not just for our benefit, which is important, and we have to look at South Africa first, but also to the benefit of the country.
Thank you very much, Kes. Without taking up any time, we'll just reshuffle business and labor now and invite Ms. Zingiswalosi, who is the president of COSATU, to give a few remarks. Labor play an important and critical role in the fulfillment of these trade relationships. President.
Thank you very much, and greetings and good morning to everyone. Firstly, we want to start from where the minister said that indeed, when we were part of the delegation to Washington in July, we indeed understood the importance of unity amongst ourselves as labor, government, and business to support our membership of AGOA and the importance that we attach to growing the economy and slashing unemployment. And we must say that for the first time in the AGOA summit, for the first time, organized labor will now be included, as the minister has alluded to. And it will be ourselves in South Africa, but also in the African continent, our counterparts in the United States, in relation to trade unions, that would also be having a platform to meet and also take our resolve to the May session so that also business and government are able in civil society to understand what labor thinks of these trade relations. We must also say that AGOA has not just been important to South Africa's industrial development, but also to those of other African states, in particular our neighboring countries. And we also strongly believe that if South Africa were to exit from AGOA, it would not only be a devastating blow to local jobs in South Africa, but also to those that are within the region, and it will add pressure to an already unmanageable migration flow to South Africa. So, as you all know and appreciate that as a trade union movement, our mandate is to protect workers' jobs and to tackle unemployment. Our participation is as a result of realizing our objective of our existence. Hence, we cannot afford to lose a job, particularly when we are sitting at 42.1% of unemployment and 60% of that is young people that are unemployed. So we want to say, Minister, efforts to extend South Africans to fully and hopefully that we will be able to enhance and incentivize our economy.
Thank you very much. One of the areas of fulfillment in part of these trade relationships are the benefits that accrue to small and medium-sized businesses, particularly black businesses. As we know, we're still engaging in efforts to uplift a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, especially black businesses, and they're here represented by Mr. Gregory Mofokeng, who's the Vice President of the Black Business Cluster.
Thank you very much, Program Director, to the Minister and the colleagues from Business and Labour, to you members of the media. Good morning. We are excited, as the evening is looking forward to the AGOA Forum next week, and we are in support of the country position that says that South Africa is to continue to participate in the AGOA, and also that it is extended for a further 10 years. And we, of course, from the Business Council are also aligned one message from our government to say that we need to look at how we scale the benefits of AGOA. The Minister spoke about negotiation, industrialization. We're hoping that we engage our US counterparts when they are likely so we can talk more about the scaling up of AGOA and how we can localize and do more value addition as far as the benefits of AGOA are concerned. That should result in investments, which will then benefit the economy broadly, create much needed jobs, and to enable inclusive economic growth that will also filter down to our black-owned SMEs. So we are quite excited about this, and we are hoping that we will be having meaningful engagements with all the partners, country partners. We call this an AIC approach, so that we can be able to maximize the benefits, of the country as far as AGOA is concerned. And of course, don't forget the benefits that will also flow to our colleagues on the continent. The AFC is a critical agreement that we are fully committed to in South Africa, and we will make sure that the benefits not only reside here in South Africa, but that our African counterparts also stand to benefit meaningfully from AGOA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My remarks. Some engineering colleagues, could I please seem to be swapping this mic? I know we are strict adherents of fiscal discipline, but I'm sure another mic won't cost us much. Great. So much. Okay, great. So, give this one to the panel. Now, colleagues, I'll open the floor to questions. We have our panel available to respond to questions I have, so I'll take first round of 3 questions, which will go to the panel, and thereafter we'll take another round. I'm also informed that we have media colleagues who are following the proceedings online, so at some point I'll invite who's in it to pose those questions or relay those questions to the panel. So I see the first hand. Please introduce yourself and the media house.
Hi there, I'm Manila Sigo from SABC News. The plans that you've laid out, Minister, they sound fantastic, and it's very exciting, the prospects that can come with the refinement of AGOA and us being included in AGOA. But I really wanted to ask about the elephant in the room. We know that some members of Congress have pushed for South Africa to that Donald Trump could be in power by the time deliberations are being made around South Africa and other African states benefiting from AGOA. Is there not a concern around that? And of course we have our international relations minister urging labor unions to consider urging their governments or their countries from not importing Israeli goods. And we know that there's a lot of tension right now. There's already been tension around the Ukraine-Russia war and South Africa's position on that. And depending on what the posture is, couldn't that influence political decisions that ultimately exclude us from this wonderful thing that we're currently enjoying?
You will take the second question in front and we'll come to the Was there, okay, since the mic is closer to that, let's go first in mic there.
Hi, this is Giovanni from Reuters. Minister, you mentioned supply chain diversification, now risk mitigation, companies basically moving operations out of China in the wake of the pandemic and tensions between Western powers and China. That's happening now. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future of AGOA. Africa is an attractive destination for investment because of that access to the U.S. market. The uncertainty and the potential for AGOA not getting renewed, to what extent is that mean that this diversification is bypassing right now?
Thank you. We'll come to get you.
Good morning, Melody from SABC News. My question also relates to what I have to say. In terms of the power matter and South Africa's non-alignment stance, how has that been, what has been done, or how were you able to overcome some of those issues that came up? Because we do know that there were some US leaders who didn't want to go on sub-Saharan in South Africa because of these differences. So my question is, what was the process in overcoming these issues? And are you now sure that South Africa's stance is respected by the US Parliament? And you did mention that relationship is important, and I only mentioned that is also an important part of the relationship. I also want to know if you are able to tell us how delegates that you're going to be expecting coming to South Africa, and what's the value in terms of tourism benefits you think is going to come from that?
Minister, I will leave it to you. How you deal with more foreign policy related questions. We can also absorb those questions because the Minister of International Relations has dealt with those issues, so we don't need to divert ourselves away from the main topic. Over to you.
Thank you very much. You spoke about reshuffling the elements. Move to the international relations. But more seriously, let me start with the first question that's been asked by SABC. That goes to the question of, and it says, to all the geopolitical issues. Let me start by saying that it was signed by 4 US Congress representatives, 2 senators, 2 House representatives, in which they requested that the US administration considers moving the forum from South Africa. And one of the signatories was the US Congress Representative Gregory Peace. In September this year, during one of the meetings on the margins of the UN General Assembly, President Ramaphosa and cabinet members met with a number of people, the US Secretary General, many others. One of the meetings was with Representative Peace, and he was very, very clear. He is looking forward to visiting South Africa, to being part of the AGOA Forum, and to strengthening the economic relationship. And the reason why that has happened is I think we've had a conversation in which we've better clarified what the position is. We've done what any democracy does. It is a serious allegation. We don't just dismiss. We investigate. We give an opportunity for everybody to bring the facts to the fore. We have a respected person, in this case, a retired judge, impeccable reputation, and that was then handled that way. I think, and we did that because, for our own sake, an allegation is made, we need to get to the bottom of it for ourselves. But that was also broadly appreciated. Democracies, by their nature, won't always agree with each other on matters. We don't always agree with each other on matters even in South Africa. It's a conversation that democracies have with each other. And so too, in the long relationship we've had with the United States, it's weathered many storms, it's gone through many periods, and it's remained intact. It's remained intact because there is strong mutual benefit to both South Africa and the United States in building and strengthening this relationship. It's got a strong business component, business communities reach out to each other. It's got a strong civil society component, labor and others reach out to their counterparts. And of course, the two governments engage with each other on a regular basis. There are many issues that we work together to make the world a better place. So, while I recognize there will always be these challenges key to build this relationship and to strengthen it, part of the opportunity that voters represent in this space is big corporates all over the world are concerned about ideas. It's not just geopolitical issues, it's also COVID pointed to the challenge of concentration. That if the entirety of your source is in one locality, then when there are challenges, unexpected, unforeseen problems, then your supply chain disruptions cause enormous difficulties commercially. So the focus is now on greater resilience. What we're seeking to do is to showcase Africa's industrial capability. And it's done really with two elements to it. One is that capability is available, can be used by American companies to de-risk. And an added element to that is we have the preferential access via AGOA. We have found that over the last year or so, there's been a lot of outreach to us by individual companies wanting to explore greater opportunities on the African continent, both in South Africa and regional value chains. So we have found that they have not put a pause button because AGOA has not yet been decided. That outreach is taking place. At the same time, early certainty about AGOA will give them a further boost, will help it enormously. So when African trade ministers met last year in December with representatives from the American administration and the US Congress, we were united in calling for the early renewal of AGOA. Preferably, we don't want it done in September 2025 when it expires, which is the last possible date on which it can be done. The earlier the renewal takes place, the greater the confidence investors will have to expand the interest on the African continent. So we've been struck by how open the opportunity is there now for on delegates. We expect if you take the government, business, labor, and other delegates, it will be more than 2,000 people who will converge from exhibitors to participants in the forum, to political leaders from the continent and from the United States. And of course, very important, the people who were there, credit cards, the trade buzz, business community. So we are expecting it to be quite a large gathering of delegates and participants.
Thank you very much, Minister. Right now, let me just give this round to colleagues that are joining online, and then we'll come back to the room. Can we read those questions? Do we have them? If we don't have them, we can then revert back to colleagues. About the number of delegates.
Regarding tourism, I maybe estimate of that. Of course, it does depend on how active the cards they are here, and we're very happy to put that together. Okay, great.
Already?
Thanks. We have 3 questions. The first one is from Peter Fabricius, Daily Maverick. He says, Minister, have you identified opportunities for SA companies to exploit AGOA opportunities which they have not yet exploited? If so, what are they? The second one is from, I think it's Pelele, from the business report, and he asks how much would be the impact of losing the AGOA benefit on South Africa's economy, since 80% of our trade with the US is through the most favored nations such as the North AGOA. The last one is from ARD German TV, and he's asking what are the businesses benefiting from AGOA? Or how are the businesses benefiting from AGOA identified?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, Peter. But the opportunities that we see for South African companies lie in a few areas. First, a lot of the AGOA benefit has accrued to larger businesses, and we think that there's an important opportunity to bring medium-sized businesses and smaller businesses into the AGOA push. Sometimes getting them to work in consortia and coordinating their efforts, because scale is important in the US market. If you're a small player and you're not able to guarantee the kind of volumes and predictability and security of supply, then you're not going to get the orders. But combining medium-sized businesses is an important one. The AmCham, the American Chamber here in South Africa, has held what they call an AGOA 101 webinar recently. The DTIC has had provincial roadshows on AGOA in the last couple of months for 4 months, so we now will complete it with the others. So that's the first area. The second area is we think that there is a lot of opportunity in value addition areas, using regional value chains, being able to access raw materials and components in one part of the continent and bringing it to another part of the continent and completing fish goods that can then be exported to the United States. It has 2 advantages. It meets the US AGOA rules of accumulation, which is that currently, if I take just textiles as an example, if you import the fabric from Asia, then you're not able to utilize the AGOA benefits for clothing. But if you're able to access the fabric from the African continent, then the US market opens up. So the AFC FTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, is about us engineering more regional value chains. Historically, that was not a big part of it. Every country separately sought to export to the United States. But through this new focus that we have as African countries, we coordinate. Next week, I will be providing some information at the AGOA Forum on how we've taken regional value chains and we've been able to pull in products from different countries. And just to give you a little teaser of it, next week we'll be providing more of the detail. South African companies that export vehicles to the United States utilize tires that are made in South Africa. Some of the rubber that is used in the tire is accessed from West Africa. So you see a virtuous value chain developing among African countries. And so that would be a second area. And then the third area is we believe that there are particular sectors where there is a lot more opportunity to access the American market. Some of them, for example, in food, sports require stronger support by African countries around what are called SPS measures, that's sanitary and phytosanitary measures, to ensure that we meet all the technical standards in the American market. So that's where we see an opportunity. Spinelli has asked the question of the impact of any loss of AGOA benefits. We're working on the proposition that there's such a compelling argument for South Africa, for the African continent, and for the United States to renew AGOA, that we should be focusing all of our efforts there. But at the moment, something like 2% of South Africa's total trade goes under preferences in the United States. So just to explain, and Spilele mentioned this, there are basically two primary routes that our products go into the United States. The first one is through the rules of the World Trade Organization. That's the most favored nation. Last year, there was a little bit more than 80% of our products go via the WTO rules. And then secondly, we have preferential access. Preferential access is done through two mechanisms. So one is the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA, and there's a number of products that are classified as AGOA preference products. And then the second one is called the Generalized System of Preferences, GSP. And GSP was a preferential access the American Congress had put in place for countries across the world, developing countries across the world. It's ended for everyone else except for AGOA beneficiaries, because it's not been reviewed by the US administration. So we still benefit from it as African countries. And between AGOA and GSP, call it about 20% on average of products go under there. So the loss itself, I mean, you've seen the APSA study, which figures up. There's been a few private sector studies on loss, and they all have made the same point, that it depends on the product you're looking at and the level of preference. For example, in cars, the preference is 2.5%. In some food products, it's less than that. In other products, it's higher than that. So it will be very specific to a product. And but we value that margin of benefit. And of course, it helps to bring more exporters into that market. So we're working on the basis that we will work strongly and actively as African countries to have AGOA renewed. Ed has asked the question, how do businesses benefit from AGOA? In other words, who gets the benefit? And this is very much market-led. In other words, companies know the rules, we publicize the rules, we provide some training to businesses, and then they export and they seek in their documentation clarify whether the export is under AGOA category. So it's not in the form of a quota that government hands out to individual companies. It's pretty much the rules are set, clarified, and then businesses export against the rules. Which businesses are benefiting? It's different sectors of our economy. The single biggest beneficiary by single product is the auto industry, but there are also very significant businesses in the food value chain, in ferroalloys, and a few other products like that. So it's not confined just to one or two sectors, but obviously some of the larger volumes are driven by those sectors that are really focused. A very big part of the market are export markets. The American market is a tough one to get into and to stay because everybody all over the world, companies compete to get part of the world's biggest market. And the fact that we are succeeding as much as we are is great. When you look at the profile of our exports to the United States, very pleasing, it's not raw materials. We export manufactured products, and that is an important part of what we aspire to do in many other parts of the world. I hope I've covered the issues.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now come back to the room and we'll start with the gentleman here. We'll kind of move this
And thank you so much, Program Director. Good morning, Honorable Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tinashe Basiri. In Africa Media, who happen to be a member of the neighborhood banking in Africa's future. One key aspect of the criteria for eligibility under the AGOA is continued progress towards establishing the rule of law. And absent the rule of law, economic development is a mirage all too often. Despite of the rule of law is a key aspect of economic development. When we look at AGOA, as far as the member countries that are eligible, there are 25 of them. And that being said, more countries being members of AGOA is beneficial to the continent itself, in as far as economic development, as far as securing Africa, which is diverse, inclusive, progressive, and prosperous. That being said, Honorable Minister, in terms of ensuring that other countries also establish the rule of law, what measures are being taken to ensure that there is that promotion of the rule of law and more to the constitution that allows these countries to be eligible under AGOA and ensure that we secure in Africa that we will want to commit. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the direction of those two gentlemen who are back here.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Benedict, SABC News Research. Just one question. In terms of businesses that are participating in AGOA, particularly in South Africa, in terms of rands, since might as well $8, how many of them are SMFEs owned by women and youth, black owned in particular? And if I might as well add, which are part of your minister's initiative, black industrialization program? Thank you. John?
John Illegal. Just two questions for you. One, under the previous border renewal 2015, there was obviously some drama around South Africa, having 60 days to meet certain requirements, particularly around the U.S. exports to South Africa of certain products. Has South Africa fulfilled all its obligations, as far as you know, that were agreed to that, and I think the Paris in 2016 was pretty much so has South Africa met all those obligations? And then the second question, just going back to the geopolitical issues, because obviously geopolitics do affect trade patterns. Obviously, the U.S. made an allegation that South Africa is found to be false, and that allegation had damaging effects on South Africa. I want to know from you, what impact does that have on the trust that you all have in working with the Americans, and how will that trust or lack thereof impact the way that you engage with America going forward, economic issues and other issues?
We'll take the last two.
Good morning. So also from Newsroom Africa. The question is in relation to Minister just highlighting that front-ending the importance of the African Continental Free Trade Area. But as it stands, for the last 20 years, South Africa has been the one to benefit largely. The 18 smallest partners making up about 1% of that trade. So if you are saying we're fast-tracking the importance of that, after how do we then kind of aim to balance that out for the other African countries to see that benefit as well, and not just concentrate in South Africa?
Okay, thank you. Next question of you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Lupua from ENCA, and I'm thinking maybe this first month, yes, this one. It's about labor relations and the increasing important role that labor is going to play in these discussions. There's a lot of frustration between workers and employers, particularly in the automotive space. In the United States, there was a General Motors, Ford strike 6 weeks, same thing in Brazil, retrenchments happening. So the labor relations that we're hoping to establish between the different stakeholders participating in AGOA, what are those conversations going to sound like, and how important a role are we going to be to make sure that we actually have a workforce that produces the imported and exported produce?
Thank you. Minister, you have a lot to chew. Let me start with the last question and hand it over to to address, and then we'll restart the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really first say that we're going to have our own session on the first day as trade unions, both in the US and in the African continent. And part of what we have always been engaging on are addressing issues, because we are not going to be starting to talk about those issues now that we are meeting. We are affiliated to Brussels, for an example, and we have been having these discussions on protection of human rights. And with the Biden administration, I think it is with the agenda that the US government has decided that in all trade agreements, the rights of workers must be protected in the issue of disagreement. And part of us supporting AGOA posted, but also us getting the 10 years that we've been pushing for. We've done that with our counterparts in the US. Part of our engagement is to ensure that in any trade relation that takes place, decent work is at the center of it. So we're also part of a forum as COSATU that we have extended to the African region also, where we are also working with trade unions in the US government and with others in Brazil, others have joined to ensure that we advance the rights of workers, in particular in relation to disability. So these are the discussions that we'll be having. And of course, South Africa, we know that we have the Labor Relations Act that protects workers. In the US, they pride themselves of their own in some areas, but of course we know that it is what governments will say, but our experience on the ground becomes different. Hence, our participation will be from all sectors. The auto sector will be participation, workers in the auto industry, the motor industry, and other most vulnerable sectors of our economy. But we have in that discussion, we are hopeful that whatever that will be on, hence to the bigger forum as our declaration as workers group to the bigger forum where ministers of trade industry and business will also be meeting in articulating these issues. And we do have an appreciation that if within the African continent, some of these African countries at the level of the ILO, we have on our own placed them on the Committee on Application of Standards for violation of those basic human rights and labor rights in relation to collective bargaining and others. So these are the conversations that we'll be having on the 2nd, that we will also be bringing into the bigger session on the 3rd of November. It's an ongoing discussion, but at the center of it all for us, it is about decent work that must find expression within the trade actions.
Thank you very much. You tried to do a little reshuffle and Cassie. I was hoping that it would be the answers to these questions would also come. But first, just to deal with the question raised by the representative of the Human Future. There are two things we're doing to promote rule of law, and we do it not because it's AGOA requirements, because we believe as South Africa that rule of law is essential to economic success and to any democratic political system. Through the AFCFTA, we are now promoting a protocol on investment, which seeks to set out the protections that investors can rely on in African markets. That would cover the measures by African governments to essentially create a more conducive environment for investment. when you have arbitrary action by any administration, the imposition of conditions overnight without due process, without hearing the other party, and so on, it undermines confidence in the future. And so this is us as Africans recognize. If we are going to encourage South African businesses to invest in other countries, and if our neighbors are going to encourage their businesses to invest in South Africa, then we need to grow. The second thing that we do is through the African Union. The President has been leading the work there to promote peace and stability on the continent. Wars and civil disruptions that we've seen in many places undermine the conditions that are required for job creation and foster growth. So some of the peacekeeping efforts that South Africa has been involved in DRC, the promotion of talks in Sudan, the promotion of talks in Ethiopia, in Mozambique, these the peacekeeping in Mozambique, these are all efforts to create an environment because you need that environment coupled with the law to encourage long-term investment. If someone is coming in for a quick transactional arrangement, then it doesn't matter very much. But the kind of capital that Africa needs is patient long-term capital. It's capital that knows that there will be a return over a long period, that there won't be expropriation without due process and without appropriate and equitable, just and equitable compensation, which is what the South African Constitution provides businesses. And I think many countries on the continent recognize that that's important. But the question raised by SABC research, so we haven't aggregated yet the numbers because each of these exporters, of course, have their own direct relationship with the American market. They don't do it via government. But what we have done is we've worked with what is called the Black Exporters Network, BEN. And the Black Exporters Network is a new group of people that are coming together. It's more than 70 or 80 companies that are, it was launched last year at the Black Industrials Conference with an MOU that was signed the presence of the President. And there are a number of companies. For example, this company called BT Industrial, they export medical filters. There's a company called Astrophica, and they build, they in fact in the aerospace area, quite an advanced industrial company. And really interestingly, we gave them an award for being an innovative black exporter last year. And companies in homeware collection, in the auto sector, and so on. So there are a number of companies, and sometimes they export directly, sometimes they export through a value chain. So if you take a company called VR, they produce a lot of the parts that go into Mercedes-Benz C-Class. And the C-Class, Mercedes C-Class are produced in only 3 places in the world. Bremen in Germany, Beijing in China, and Buffalo City in South Africa. So this is a black industries. They do the bonnets, they do the side fenders. So they won't export bonnets to the United States. They'll provide it to Mercedes-Benz, who in turn may be exporting, say, for example, to the United States and elsewhere in the world. So there's quite a important value chain that black industries are beginning to get into. John, from the New York Times, if I can just recall for the audience, one of the key matters that came up in 2016 was a concern by American businesses whether they have reasonable access to the South African market. And it all came down ultimately to ensure poultry. South Africa had, following the rules of the World Trade Organization, done an investigation into dumping of poultry in the South African market. And it imposed anti-dumping duties which also affected American poultry producers. Through the discussions in AGOA, we were able to reach an agreement that we could retain our anti-dumping duties. That was done through a process that was in accordance with the law, but we provided a quota for American poultry to come into South Africa absent the anti-dumping duties. We've adhered to that. In fact, every year there's a small increase in the volume of the poultry that is imported from the United States through the quota arrangement. We've now more recently put anti-dumping duties on poultry from other countries, not the United States. That's an existing one, but to new countries. And one of the concerns US producers have raised with us in the past is that they said, look, fair enough, we understand the law is the law. It is a global rule on anti-dumping, but you haven't done so on other countries. And our recent action, I think, signals that we apply the law wherever the evidence is in support of that application. So happy to say that we have fully adhered to the understandings we reached there. On the matter of trust, trust of course is built on an ongoing basis, and it's easier for trust to be eroded than for trust to be built. I think start from trust to be built. But what we've had in the case of the United States is this big challenge that you referred to. You had strong relations over this period. There's been from Secretary Blinken's side and Minister Pandor quite a bit of discussion about a range of global issues. Secretary Yellen and Minister Bonangwana had a very strong working relationship, and I work very closely with Secretary Tai on matters relating not just to the bilateral relationship, but also in consulting with each other on issues that are subject of discussions in the World Trade Organization. So what I think we've done over the last 12 months is strongly build on those relationships. And of course, even at the G20 meeting that took place earlier this year, President Ramaphosa and President Biden had an opportunity to briefly talk to each other. So it's about building that relationship from government to government and further strengthening the private sector relationships. So that's why President Ramaphosa reached out to the American business community in New York, and BUSA and the US Chamber of Commerce signed or have the memorandum of understanding. SABC and the AFL-CIO reached a strong and practical working relationship. So they all point to the fact that the United States and South Africa recognize this relationship is important. It is and needs to be resilient enough to weather the storms that come, and that each time there are the storms, we weather them, but at the end of it, we try to lift the relationship. Tokoza raised the matter of how we can get the AFC to benefit more generally. The regional value chain is the key. And I want to point to some examples where we have the discussion next to of value chains. We can demonstrate a few of those value chains in the industrial exhibition, showing how with careful working together, we can unlock development. At the moment, for example, 2 neighboring countries to South Africa are significant beneficiaries of South Africa's auto industry because they're big suppliers of components, critical components to the auto industry. I hope if you were the questions be well answered by Shop Stewart. Otherwise, I'm just going to start to President on this issue. But I think what she did, which was quite interesting, underlined, and this is not always, the big headlines in any day's news may not be the full story of relations between governments. Matters like the promotion of labor rights. The US and South Africa have both been strong proponents and partners in that. I was reminding the business community earlier in the breakfast session that the formal focus of American trade policy is that it's a worker-centric trade policy. That's the official framing by Ambassador Tais, the proposition she put forward to the US Congress in explaining American trade policy. More and more American administration representatives have said it's not only about wealth, it's also about work. It's about ensuring the important opportunities for industrialization is there. That's a good South Africa also. So, in the area of labor relations, we both believe that core labor standards of the International Labour Organization is very important. That there should be conditions where workers can organize and bargain collectively, freedom of association. Those values are values that we both hold, and they are, of course, others like that. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to invite Mr. Kaskova to add to those comments.
Yeah, so just very briefly, I think a number of the questions that have been asked are issues that I think this Labour and government South Africa to take on. I think that in the sort of next iteration of we all hope there will be an iteration of AGOA. I think we need to work closely together between the three partners and amongst the three partners to ensure that we enable our participation in AGOA to actually enable us to build the sort of inclusive and equitable economy that we want to build. And that looks like labor issues, that looks at the ability of businesses to do business and the ability of government to actually facilitate all of that. So I think we certainly are committed to do that. And I think that if we can, at this session early in November, actually begin to concretize this partnership and demonstrate this partnership, I think it will hold us in good stead in the negotiation going forward. So just to say that I agree with the responses to the questions, and we do appreciate that being this forum is happening in a very uncertain geopolitical situation, and we need to manage it, and we need to manage it together. Thank you.
And in the true spirit of leaving no one behind.
Thank you for taking me along. I think, well, as far as those matters into the capable hands of government, of course, we will continue to whisper the ears of government business position, because, of course, we don't like to in an environment of uncertainty. So the more certainty there is, the more business thrives. So we leave those in the hands of business. But also to say that as far as the participation of business, we mobilized sufficiently this year. I think with the current numbers, the majority of the business people that would be there will be black-owned businesses, and we are hoping that they will take advantage of this platform so that they can also start, plugging into platforms such as AGOA and establish those trade and business relations with the American counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'm mindful of the fact that you have a busy day. The Deputy President is appearing in Parliament. I've got my media briefing at 1. We're such a very communicative and diligent government. So I don't want to arrest you here for longer than you've planned, unless I get an indication that there's a really pressing question either from the colleagues online or here in the room. I will then close the session. Since Tembi the nodding, she's happy. I think Minister will enough information in the true character of this administration. Very open, transparent. engaging administratively. Thank you very much to our esteemed panel, the Minister, President of COSATU, the Vice President of the BBC, the CEO of Water, and to you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your engaging questions. We're looking forward to hosting you at the AGOA Forum, and we're looking forward to you being also a critical element of this partnership. Thank you.